What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another solo mining episode 81. We're going to be out here in the Mackinaw today, just kind of doing some solo mining, going after Veldspar again. I'm just basically just stockpiling it at this point. I haven't really started looking at blueprints, potential manufacturing stuff yet, but I'll probably, in the next couple of days, start perusing around for something to get researched and to start using this ore for. Unless we go with the original plan of just keeping this ore and stockpiling it till the end of the year and just kind of seeing how crazy amount we can stack up, which is pretty cool. But I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about mining drones, and a lot of people have been asking about a lot of the stuff I've been talking about in the past, couple of weeks. Why not use like mining drones and stuff? So I figured I'll use the mining drones when with this Mackinaw, but generally speaking, I don't have anything against mining drones. I love drone mining, actually. But in terms of like being in like a retriever or, a Mackinaw or anything that's like kind of a solo ship that's not being boosted, they're going to add so little to your cubic meter per second yield that it can sometimes just be more hassle than it's worth in terms of just mining procedure. Now, this character doesn't have max mining drone skills. I want to say it has mining drone spec 3 and then like interfacing 3. So it's got 4 more skills before it really kind of caps out the yield there. I do think that there is a good use for them, because in terms of the Mackinaw, it takes like 22 minutes to fill up that ship. So the drones will essentially be able to cut off a few minutes of your entire cycle. The strategy with the mining drones too is just to have them near a rock that's closer to your ship. You want to have your ship pretty close to the rock that your drones are mining on, because then you want their travel time to be as low as possible. There's also situations where you can put them out if you don't want to. If there's like one rock way like 20 or beyond your targeting or mining range that you don't really want to burn to, you can use them to like remote clear stuff in term just to clean up stuff. But their travel time can also just decrease the effectiveness in terms of time sink there. I probably wouldn't advise anybody to train into drone mining until you have a lot of your other skills done. I think once you don't have a lot of targeting or navigation or shield skills, or especially exhumer or mining drone or just mining skills left to train, when there's not a whole lot left, then I think that's a good spot to start working on mining drone skills. Because at that point you already are running like Tech 2 tank, you've already got exhumers 5, you got mining barge 5, you've got navigation and basic maneuvering 5, signature analysis 5, long range targeting 5, and all these things are going to help your overall efficiency in terms of the ship you're in. Then you train into like the mining drone operation, and then mining drone spec, and then drone interfacing. Drone interfacing is important because not only does it increase your drone damage, but also mining. That is a skill that a lot of people overlook when they're speccing into mining drones, but it does help. But also, I would probably train your combat drone skills up before mining. So at the point when I would recommend people actually start doing drone mining skills, they've already got drone 5. They probably already have like their faction drone skill at like level 4. They have their durability, their avionics, all that stuff already in a pretty good place before you really start committing training time, because it can be kind of a long train. Like drone interfacing 5 is a pretty hefty train, just like drone mining specialization 5 is a pretty hefty thing as well. But I'm gonna kind of just showcase the Mackinaw mining out here today with these drones. From what I've seen from the mining I've done today, it's maybe saved me like a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. What otherwise would take me like 22 minutes to fill up the Mackinaw, I can do it in like 20 and a half minutes or something. But obviously she doesn't have all the skills, so if we really, when we get ready to really kind of like drill down and show that that process. We're going to want, the max skills and stuff, but it's still, I would say it's a pretty safe bet that even if you have max interfacing and you have max drone spec 5 and all of that stuff, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 minutes shaved off of your normal fill up time, which is fine. If like you're in a system that doesn't have a lot of issues, then throw them out there. It's just a little extra yield for you. It can get annoying too, like whenever rats come in, you guys suck them in and then put out your combat drones and you take the rats down if they annoy you, and then put your drones back out. You don't have to do it like that. You can actually just run like 4 mining drones and like 1 combat light drone, have them all out at the same time. The drones never really have to stop mining, and you don't even have to really target the rats either. Once they red box you, and the combat drone you have out will automatically attack the target and take care of it. But I think if you really are after that extra cubic meter yield that the mining drones are adding, you probably want to run 5 as opposed to just 4. And it's not necessarily a big deal to like bring those drones in, kill the rats, and then put them back out. And it also kind of gives you something to do, if you're not doing like project discovery, or if you're not working on fits, or there's really nothing else for you to do while you're actually mining. Managing those drones can actually kind of help fill in the gap in time and everything. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of indifferent when it comes to the drones when you're just in a ship like a Mackinaw or Procurer or Skiff or whatever. Another question I wanted to answer too is, I saw this in the comments about, is it worth comparing basically the Endurance to the Skiff, and which one is worth more going into, and which one is faster to get into. The Endurance is going to be faster to get into hull-wise because you're relying on mining frigate skill that goes into that, and then the Skiff is going to be a little bit longer of a train because you have to go through the mining barge as well. The roll bonuses for the Exhumers are scaled based on your Exhumer and your mining barge skill, just like the expeditionary frigates. They're going to scale off expeditionary frigate skill and your mining frigate skill. You start off with mining frigate. Mining frigate's a little bit easier to train than like mining barge. A lot of people would say that Skiff is easier to get, or Endurance is easier to get into than a Skiff. I don't necessarily agree with that, because if you're just talking about in terms of getting into the hull, the Endurance is going to be faster to get your guy into. But the Endurance and the Prospect offer a lot of utility that also adds a significant amount of training on top of what a Skiff would normally do. For instance, a Skiff, you're going to maybe have like modulated strip miner 2s with Tech 2 crystals and Tech 2 tank, and then that's pretty much it, Exhumer 5, whatever. Now, on the Prospect and Endurance side, if you want to run crystals there, you will also have to run the reprocessing skills to be able to use deep core miner lasers with the crystals. But not only that, but a lot of the benefits of having an Endurance or Prospect is using like cloak. So training the cloaking skill, or probe launcher. So you're going to be training scan skills and probably some navigation stuff, since you can fit afterburners and micro warp drives to great effect on those ships as well. So it really kind of depends on how you plan on fitting an Endurance and how you're planning on fitting a Skiff. But I would say that they're probably, getting the Endurance kind of maxed out for its utility probably takes longer than a Skiff does. But I do like the Skiff. In almost every situation that I would need to take something like a Skiff, the Porpoise kind of fills its role now in terms of like the tank you can bring and everything. It's sad that the Skiff is just not really as good as it used to be, which is unfortunate. But if I had to pick between like the Skiff and the Endurance to say go do like rare ore mining, I would take the Endurance all day long. Or doing wormhole mining, Endurance all day long. Low sec, Endurance all day long. And even in like nullsec, okay, going out and doing merc mining, would you take the Skiff? No, I would just take a Procurer, because the value of merc is so high that having a really cheap ship that you don't even rig is so much better than a slower align and warp of a Skiff. So I mean, we're gonna pick up a skiff this week. We're gonna probably do a shopping trip tomorrow and buy skiffs and probably retrievers and some other stuff to kind of showcase a little bit more of mining. Right now we've been kind of stockpiling mining stuff for the past couple weeks, but we've got coveters, we've got a 1 procure, we've got an endurance, I have 1 prospect, we got 2 Mackinaws, 2 Hulks, we have the porpoise, and we have the orca. So I figure we'll go ahead and pick up a couple of skiffs and then a couple of retrievers, and that will kind of round out a lot of what we can do. And then I'll probably pick up some, even though I don't want to, I'll probably pick up some ore strip miners. I want to talk about in an episode really about the benefit of ore strip miners, and like, you have people on either one side of the fence or the other about it. Not having residue is really, really important when you're doing stuff like that. You need it's very rare, or like it's in finite quantity. So if you're going after isogen, noxium, and you have a supply that you don't want to burn a lot of it on the rock, then running strip ones and running ore strip miners is great. Now the biggest benefit of the faction ore strip miners is going to be range. They also require less CPU, so it's easier to get a little bit better lows and mids on your ship as well. But they're also pricey, and they're very attractive when people scan your ship and they see that you're running whether it's a mining barge or an exhumer with ores, then you become a really nice target for them. I wouldn't recommend actually putting ores on a mining barge. So if you're running like a coveter or a procure or a retriever, I don't think adding a whole lot of value on mods is really worth it. Whenever a fit becomes more valuable than the hull itself, then you start looking like a really good target for safety or for code, or for a gank fleet that's out, because you're stacking way too much value. And I've seen some crazy stuff. I've seen a 1 bill fitted coveter before, and we're talking like faction mining laser upgrades and faction ore strip miners, and it's just ridiculous to put that kind of value and fit on a ship like the coveter when its overall hull is not even near worth what that is. But that's subjective. That's kind of my opinion. If I was going to put ore strip miners and faction lows on a ship, it would probably end up being a Hulk in a situation where it is a controlled environment, fleet mining, doing like moon mining or something. And I see ores used a lot for moon mining because the rocks in a moon frac are pretty far away from each other. If you're running like harvest implant set plus ore harvesters, then it becomes really nifty and very useful to be able to kind of reach out 40 plus kilometers and grab that stuff, and it doesn't require your orca or your porpoise to move around and burn around a lot in that, which can save you time. And that's pretty much the only situation I would advise using those faction strip miners anyway. I really don't have anything against really expensive mining fits and clones. I think everybody at one point or another in their mining career kind of goes crazy with high yield, high value. I think it's a lot more expensive now. Like, prices for so much have gone up, and if you're going to sport, and we're talking like all of my alts, we're talking like 7 or 8 alts back in the day for me, had full harvest. They had Mitchies, MX1005. We're talking about bill or more in clones. And then I was running faction lows on Hulks with ore strip miners and all that stuff. It's just really expensive stuff. And when you add like the faction ore strip miners and like the faction lows, whether it be for ice or for ore, then your yield is really, really good. And I wouldn't recommend you going high yield like that with like the faction stuff unless your skills are there, so the way you get the most out of it. And most of the time, whenever you're fitting a ship or have an expensive clone like that, it's almost not worth it at all unless you're doing something at scale And usually, it sounds kind of weird, but usually in Null is the safest place to have clones like that and to have ships like that. And then you're doing like moon pops or doing ice. And that's another thing too, is like my opinion on faction ore strip miners and ice strip miners are actually pretty different. Whereas Tech 2, well, like for ice mining, the Tech 2s, if you're not using ore ice harvesters, then it's just not really worth it. I mean, every time I try to fit any sort of ship with like decent tank for ice, I'm always wanting to just go with the ore faction ice harvesters, because of how much they save on CPU. The regular ones just are completely crazy in terms of that. And probably the last faction modules I've owned in the past like year or so were the ice harvesters, because I still think that they're highly worth the investment because of the CPU and the power grid, or the CPU leniency that they offer over the regular ones. Whereas ore strip miners, the faction ones, you can still fit decent tank with them on there. And I think a lot of it also comes down to facts that like when you're doing ore, you can technically put like overclocking rigs on your ship, whereas when you're doing ice, you definitely want like the ice rig, so that kind of takes a slot. So it does prevent you from getting a little bit of CPU grace from the rig slots. But by and large, if you're planning on doing anything like I used to do, like doing mass amounts of like ice mining and null and make fuel blocks, 100% all day long, I will recommend the faction ore harvesters. If you really don't like your ISK or your wallet, you can go with the faction lows for ice. And actually the ore ones are pretty expensive too, and those things get crazy expensive. But we'll do a comparison video probably in one of these episodes coming up, where we'll look at like the most blingiest ship, probably a Hulk, because I also don't recommend doing faction stuff or like harvest implant sets if you're not doing like boost. The faction stuff scales so much better when you're on boost. And if you're solo out here like what I'm doing today, modulated strip miner, Tech 2 shields, good to go. You could add all the other stuff, but it's like the real benefit of harvest and of ore strip miners is range, right? Because your laser range that you can actually mine out to gets so far out there. That's why you want like high long range targeting, and also like a targeting implant, because there is a situation where if you stack like all harvest and you have ore strip miners, that your targeting range is actually lower than the range that you can actually mine at. So that effective range there is pointless. So you have to actually bring up your targeting range capability to get close to matching your mining range so that you can benefit from that. And the only reason I would ever recommend the harvest set, the ores for ore, is doing things in nullsec where the anomalies, the rocks in the anomalies are really far apart from each other, and on moons are really far apart from each other. And especially if you tend to like, if you sometimes mine with friends or something, if they're running, especially if your friends are actually running like harvest and ores and stuff, and you're kind of following their orca or their porpoise around, they're also going to be able to hit rocks. And if you're there with them in their like squad, then you might have to actually burn out a little bit further to get to rocks if you're not rocking that kind of stuff. So a little bit of peer pressure going on there. But the other thing that brings up too is like if you have multiple alts and you're doing your own solo fleet mining, making sure you can't just like give one alt harvest and the ore strip miners, because you have that one alt that can reach really far out, and whereas everybody else in your kind of little crew has to burn in a little bit more. So it's definitely better at scale, but also you have to make sure all of your alts line up, and they all have the same range and the same targeting range, so that there's no downtime, which kind of eats into your efficiency. But it's been a while since I've actually put together a really expensive mining ship, but I've been known to do it. I mean, I've also been known to like put together like a billion fitted venture too, which you can go really crazy with a venture. But it's like when it comes to that kind of stuff and like dumping a lot of money into like min-maxing, like truly min-maxing mining, doing it on Exumer is pretty much the only thing that I would recommend. And even then, like doing it on Hulk is probably where I would kind of stick that. Putting that kind of stuff on a Mackinaw is you're usually going to take out without with a fleet or something. It's like if you really, that's the other thing too, is if you really care about min-maxing and then you really care about max yield, you're not going to be out there with just a solo Mac. If your whole intent and purpose is to like get as much cubic meters every second as possible, you're going to have boost. You're going to be boosting in like the biggest ship you possibly can. And we're talking like Rorqual, max boost and all that stuff, and just really kind of going crazy with it. And in that sense, when you compare it to like having a fully fitted Rorqual out on grid and you're dragging and even if you're sieging and you have like the maximum amount of boost and you have those big old hulks that are doing, max ice or max ore mining, then the cost for those alts and their ships and their clones compared to like your command ship are not that far off, right? But it's like if your mining ship, if your Hulk costs more than your boost ship, then that you're probably not getting the best bang for your buck. It's like just cost analysis at that point, and just looking at like is it what you're doing worth putting that much ISK on the field and everything. And for me, it's if I had to like throw together a fleet and put as much yield on it as possible, I'd be expecting to put it somewhere in nullsec. In other news, today looks like the day that they're forcing the new launcher on us. Not necessarily happy about that, and I've expressed my my dislike for the new launcher, but I think also I just don't like change. And I say that because whenever the new UI was put out as a feature test, I covered it a little bit, but then I like promptly just stopped using it. I didn't even adjust my UI or my overview for the new UI until literally they just kind of replaced the old one with it, which is kind of the case now. I had both launchers installed up to like yesterday, but it sounded to me like they were actually just going to like basically make the old launcher non-functional. So I ended up just going ahead and fully logging in, fully committing to the new launcher, and hopefully they'll add some better features to it and make it a lot less I don't know, it's just very bloaty to me. It's takes up a lot of space as opposed to like the other one and things. It's just, I think it could use a lot of work. It might be a step in the right direction, but I just think that it also could just use kind of a lot of love and stuff, and it kind of has me curious about what other changes that they're going to be doing. Like I know the new UI was one that we saw a little while ago, the new launcher, and I'm curious about kind of what else we have kind of in store for us. After all the stuff they've talked about, like potentially going to be happening this year in terms of like expansion, I still believe that everything that I'm hearing right now is just Vanguard, and for something that is not going to impact industrialists a whole lot, I feel like this whole year is going to be nothing but Vanguard and placating to Vanguard and then trying to get people to play that. And that is unfortunate because we could have a very dull year in terms of industry and mining, in terms of new content or changes or quality of life. So I think that we're going to be just kind of stuck with what we've got right now until things change. But now that we're like completely pretty much don't have anybody in nullsec right now in terms of alts, if you guys are interested in, I know we've done fleet mining videos where I've had like the 2 Macs out there or whatever, but we do have the ability to actually do my my preferred kind of configuration, which is 3 alts and a porpoise. So I'm doing a shopping trip probably tomorrow, and I'm trying to decide if I want to go ahead and pick up another Mackinaw and Hulk for that other alt that we got brought in. That alt that we brought in is just so overtrained for just being a miner. We're talking 80 million skill points. It's a Tengu pilot. It's so many things. It's like practically max manufacturing, and that's probably going to be the tune we're going to be doing research on and doing the jobs, because I got the slots on that one That was the one we used in nullsec for all that stuff. So that's going to be a busy day. We're probably going to be spending most of the day in Jita, actually just looking at stuff and kind of looking at what options we have. Because whatever we decide to actually start building, we got to get in the cooker. I don't think I can realistically do nanite repair paste and stuff that I already have capital temperature regulators and stuff. I already have like max research BPOs for. We're going to try to find something else a little bit more accessible for what we've got access to. So looking forward to seeing what goes on there. Now this might sound even weirder in terms of like manufacturing and stuff like that. I know, especially in this series and also solo nullsec, I've been trying really hard to get like a good amount of manufacturing off the ground. But manufacturing is one of those things that if you just wake up one day and you're like, I'm gonna buy a bunch of BPOs and start making X, Y, and Z, probably not going to end too well for you. And as you saw with like the research we did on the BPOs for nullsec in that series, it takes a long time. We're talking like my capital core temp regulator took months to fully research, and that was in a Stoyo and rigged and all that stuff. But, and this might sound weird, but it's like most of my enjoyment in terms of manufacturing comes from just like collecting BPOs, researching them, checking those progress bars every day, and then having just a library of things that I could make, right? And that's an important thing when it comes to manufacturing in Eve, is the market and the items are always changing. What might be good to build and sell one week might be not so good to build and sell the next week. So pigeonholing yourself into like making a certain thing and then not being able to make a profit on maybe a low value stint on the market can be kind of demoralizing. So I think we're going to try to do both the things that I wanted to do. I think we're in conjunction with just stacking this ore for as long as possible, hopefully through the end of the year. I think the other side of that equation is going to be actually just starting to collect BPOs, researching them, and just kind of collecting those in alongside the ore that we're mining. And then even if we don't do any manufacturing until like later in the year, we'll have the idea is that I have a bunch of BPOs fully researched and ready to go and stuff. And we will make stuff. We're gonna make stuff for the sake of showing the process and stuff. But I think for me personally, just having a decent library of BPOs, research BPOs to kind of like piddle around with is going to be kind of what I want to be going for, because I like to piddle. I'm always making spreadsheets or adjusting fits or whatever the case may be. I do have some BPOs in Jita on my main that I need to bring over here, but I haven't moved them because I don't know how relevant they are. It's like my fuel block BPOs, which I'm not going to be able to make that stuff here unless we actually go out there and do some ninja ice mining, which is possible. Definitely not something sustainable that we can do without just getting super annoyed with how all that stuff kind of goes. But also I have a fully researched mobile tractor unit, but that might also be pretty difficult too, because we're talking like P4 going into that. But that's the other thing we got to do this week is set up PI, and that's that tune that came in, that 80 million skill point tune that's here now has max PI skills too. So we might actually start putting some work into stockpiling P1 as well as ore, so that when we do want to make stuff that requires PI, we kind of have a stockpile of it. I'm really kind of getting in the mood of just like wanting to like make the NPC structure sit a little bit lower at the end of the year. I really just want to like build like a crazy amount of stock in terms of the ore, PI and whatever, and ship. I've never been one to collect a lot of assets. Every time I've gotten done using a ship or I'm not using it anymore, I've graduated to something else, always get rid of it. I know that's like very, very much the opposite for what the average Eve player is, just saving everything. I've seen guys who have assets in hundreds and hundreds of different stations. Their asset window looks absolutely insane, and at any one time my asset window is pretty is pretty bare, because it's like if if it's not in the area I'm currently in, then it gets moved with me or it gets liquidated. So I'm not a big hoarder of the assets in Eve, but kind of doing that now a little bit with mining, kind of just, grabbing some mining stuff here and there as we kind of, cover certain stuff in the episodes, and we've got a good amount of stuff. And the goal there is to just be able to throw together a configuration, test it out, especially if we see changes to mining and industry. We'll be able to quickly get that new stuff out and test it without having to go out and acquire it. Now, also in terms of manufacturing, I'm a big believer in making things that are consumed at a high rate. So that can be either like boost charges, like in terms of mining, like boost charges or crystals. Crystals really don't burn all that fast, and they're kind of a pain in the ass to make. But even like ships, like very commonly flown like Tech 1 ships that get just fed to faction warfare or something, those are really not, because it means there's always a market. If you're looking at things to manufacture, you want stuff that there's always going to be like a need for. Now, you can look at things like the monthly economics report that came out, and that came out yesterday, and you can infer a lot from those charts, and it really is going to tell you where mining is happening, where it's not, where destruction is happening, and what ISK sinks and faucets are, and where people are spending money, how much money is available in the economy. And it's really nice to look at. I've never really gotten into over analyzing the monthly economics report. I like to look at it in terms of like seeing what regions there's a lot of industry going on, and in most cases it's always going to be Delve. Delve's always going to have like a really high number of they're always going to be ranked really high on a lot of those graphs and all those charts, because there's just a lot going on over there and everything. But also just watching like the overall economy, the total amount of ISK that's available in the economy going up and up and up. And over the past year, it's just like the economy has just been infused like crazy. There's like so much ISK and stuff. I do advise, if you are into manufacturing and stuff like that, to look through it, and just even if you don't really care a lot about the charts, just having a good idea of like what the economy is doing and where a lot of stuff is going on. But for manufacturing, you definitely want to make sure. I'm either on one side of the fence or the other. I want to build things that I use, that I consume, that are useful for me to actually maintain my operation, which is nice. But I use a lot of Tech 2 stuff, so that means that I have to do a lot of invention, which is not possible in high sec and stuff. But and I also like a lot of stuff I use is like reactions and stuff that is just very difficult and all that. But I think that'd be one good thing to get to the point of everything that I use from day-to-day operations, being able to make it myself, and that's kind of self-reliance is really nice. And then also the other side of that is building things that are consumed heavily in the area that I'm manufacturing. So it'd be like Tech 1 ships, modules that are common fits for faction warfare, or if you're just building doctrine stuff for an alliance or a corporation. That's really good ways to actually make cash. What I want to do is I want to be able to experiment, because normally in the past what I've done is I've taken everything that I've manufactured and either have sold it. If I'm in nullsec, I'd be usually building stuff for a purpose, put it up on like a Keepstar market or whatever, which has always been nice, and that stuff can move very randomly. But everything else I've usually built and shipped to Jita to sell. But this year my goal is to actually build stuff, but put them in off the in really in NPC markets, kind of around off the beaten path and kind of away from trade hubs, and kind of see how that does. I've never really done that at scale. I do it with ore, compressed ore. It's really nice to just throw up compressed ore that's not the same price as Jita, but might be off of a trade route where, and I've had pretty good success with that, because a lot of people will look at that and be like, it's the same price as Jita, but I don't have to actually go into Jita to pick it up and risk coming back out with it. or deal with that whole trade route stuff. And it's like convenience, and you could obviously, increase your price above JITA for that convenience. But if you're like me, I don't really care too much about ISK in terms of like needing it. I don't really need ISK, so I don't need to have that kind of a markup. It's actually a pretty good experiment, just like putting that stuff on those like markets, and also just like starter systems, like putting up ships and modules that are commonly used by newer players in and around starter systems. Obviously, this is already a thing that gets done ad nauseum, and there's a lot of price gouging going on around starter systems. But like if you come in and actually have like a JITA price for ships and modules in and around starter systems, then you might actually move stuff a lot. Or the people that are in there like hiking their price up end up coming down and bringing their prices down, which kind of fixes it a lot too, because new players buying stuff on NBC markets and near starter systems are getting absolutely ripped off. And some of the things that I've seen, it's kind of crazy. But and especially if for me, whenever I started playing EVE, I didn't necessarily know I wanted to do mining. I was just like, oh, it's a space game. I'd played EVE Echoes, and I was like, well, this has got to be better than on the PC. And got over here and just started messing around, did missions, did the career stuff. It was before new player experience and all that. And after like doing security missions and doing the rat thing, I was like, mining looks really cool, and that's kind of what I gravitated towards. And then industry and all that stuff kind of came a little bit later. I was really dismissive of PI in the very beginning, because I was looking at it through the scope of trying to make it work in high sec with already having a limited amount of knowledge on the subject. But then once I got into null sec and I really started looking at PI and seeing the ways that you can make min-max and kind of control different aspects of the pipeline, is when I started getting into it. I still don't mind PI in high sec. I mean, you basically just accept the fact that you're going to be paying a little bit more because of like the Concord tax and stuff like that that's put onto the PACUs. So your margins are going to be a little bit lower. But it also means that if you're in like nullsec or somewhere where you have access to the PACUs and there's not a Concord tax on it, then you can kind of make some of the more common things and still make a profit. I think in terms of like if you're paying more taxes and stuff like that, you're going to probably end up being better off going to like higher tiers of PI like P4 and turning that around into high consumable items like mobile tractor units. Mobile tractor units are amazing thing to make and sell in nullsec, because all those Ishtars out there ratting, all those people out there ratting with alts who all have mobile tractor units, and people leaving them out and they're getting destroyed or they expire. I mean, the amount of mobile tractor units that I've sold to people who just forgot to pick them back up is insane. And if it's not them forgetting to pick it up, then it's them getting the mobile tractor unit destroyed. So that's what I consider like a high consumable item, because it just helps with the ratting. And even people in an industry are doing it. People who are killing rats while they're mining and they're taking care of wrecks like you should be, are sometimes leaving their tractor units out there. And it's one of the reasons I ended up getting that BPO and just going straight into like fully researching it. And the other reason I've gotten to like the core temp regulators and the capital core temp regulators, because they're easier to make. And if you go into a industry corporation or an industry group and they're building capital ships, if you come in and you're able to already kind of put together that kind of stuff, you have the reaction formulas and you have the stuff to do the core temp regulators, and the PI, then you can kind of very easily slot in, because you have to use those core temp regulators for like so much. So it's a really good place to kind of get into the pipeline of capital ship construction. The other thing that I think is really good, if you're in nullsec, I think you're doing a lot of PI and stuff, another really good thing to start building is structure parts, because requires mostly PI and some basic level materials. But being able to build structures, I did make a pretty good amount from making Athenors and stuff like that. Really, the money is kind of in, I sell more volume of Athenors when I build structures, because people are putting up on for moon mining. They still have to source their own cores and stuff like that, because those are seeded. But being able to just have a stockpile of citadels to sell people is nice too, and that's just about that diversity. You're building a lot of different things, and then when the need is there, then that's when you make your profit. So manufacturing just requires a lot of time, and it takes patience and investment, and also waiting for the market to be in your favor. So if you're literally making something from a BPO and the second comes out of the cooker, you need to offload it in order to do the next thing, probably not a good position to be in, because you're going to end up either with very low profit margins. You don't really want to do that. You want to be able to sell your wares when it actually makes sense. And that also becomes quite fun, because you can go in every day, you can look at what you've got available to sell, you can look at the market. Is it the day for this thing? Yes, no. Then you can go and when you actually, hold on to an item long enough to see a decent amount of profit on it by just holding it until the market is good for it, that's very, very fulfilling. And I think that's where a lot of the enjoyment and a lot of the work that you put into manufacturing really pays off by really just being picky and kind of watching that market and everything. And that's kind of the situation I want to get in. So it might be a long road. We're probably going to be talking a lot about manufacturing in this series, and we're probably going to be doing a lot of industry stuff in this series, and coupled with like solo mining and all that stuff that goes into it. Because if I have one goal in EVE this year is to get that BPO collection up and get that stuff researched, get us good stockpile going on, and really enjoy kind of chasing down profits and everything that goes into it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. A lot of stuff still trying to like get started here this year in terms of manufacturing and just stockpiling. I'm in this really big mood to just stockpile ore and PI and mining stuff, and just really kind of piddle and play every day and just have fun. So that is what I'm leaning towards, what I'm hoping to provide insight and enjoyment and entertainment through this series and everything. So thank you guys for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you want to support the series and the channel, consider becoming a channel member. And like always, keep lasers on, fly safe, and get rich. But also, most importantly, have fun. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.